Now here is the risk that the Browns had to take with I love you, Cleveland. And I love you, Ohio. And a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan along with Ryan Smith. Great to have you aboard. Al Pawlowski will be joining us to really dive into baseball, the Guardians, the whole Clase thing. Oh, my. Gosh, these players, I mean, you'd think they're making enough money. I'm not saying that he's guilty. The investigation will tell us one way or the other with he and with Ortiz. But my goodness, in both these cases, it happens to be members of our team. We'll get into that a little bit later with Al. Ryan, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing really well today, Bruce. I'm excited to hear all your takes about the Clase when I saw Jeff Passan drop that news. You're the first name I thought of, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to trade him because of his franchise-friendly contract and how many elite closers are there, let alone having control of him for the next few years. I do want to start with just a couple updates on the Browns. Pickett with a hamstring injury, suffered the injury at the end of Saturday's practice. So I don't know the severity of it. But they certainly have a pretty filled quarterback room, that's for sure. So, but we'll see how serious that is. And Martin Emerson, left Achilles, will undergo an MRI at some point today. The fear is it could be a significant tear. But one thing the Browns do not need, Ryan, are serious injuries to key players.
Oh, gosh, Bruce. I mean, the Kenny Pickett thing is one thing. You mentioned the plethora of quarterbacks in that room. You give these rookies a better chance to get acclimated to the offense and get in there sooner than later. But Martin Emerson, just an absolutely massive blow. Denzel Ward has been one of the best cornerbacks in the league ever since he got in here. But Martin Emerson, 2 years ago, really broke out for the Cleveland Browns. He was that second boundary cornerback that was a lockdown. Last year, not so great. And on a contract year to come out and right before the season's about to start to tear your Achilles, just absolutely devastating news, and the Browns can't afford it.
And we've gone through the schedule. The first portion of the Browns schedule before they get to the bye week is just absolutely brutal. So we're at the very early stages of camp. I did want to touch upon that here in the first segment, but we're really devoting the majority of today's show to baseball with the Clase incident tied in with Ortiz. Trade deadline is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Are the Guardians buyers, sellers, or do we stand pat, as I am advocating? And then all the other trade rumors and where we're at as far as envisioning what the playoffs are going to look like. And that's all coming up with Al Pawlowski next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. I love you, Menor Nissan. Hi, Bruce Drennan here from my good friends at Menor Nissan, Ray Sminchak, the whole staff. As you know, I've been doing a lot of our shows down in Florida, just returned. Great to be back on the home confines of our beautiful studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport for Big Play. But I got to tell you, I drove my Nissan Rogue from Menor Nissan down to Florida, had the rack up on top with extra luggage. It was absolutely the most splendid, beautiful ride. Just as smooth as could be. My wife also drives a Rogue. We rotated driving down there and back, but I just can't recommend it any more so to you. Get on out there, test drive a Rogue or a Murano or any of the other great products that they have out there at Menor Nissan. Don't forget, they're now in partnership with Infinity of Akron and Infinity of Beechwood. Check those great vehicles out as well. Service department is absolutely fantastic. Went back to the dealership to get maintenance after that long drive down there and back. And give them a call. Set up an appointment. Of course, check out their website at MenorNissan.com. That's MenorNissan.com. I love you, Menor Nissan. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's always a pleasure to welcome my old pal and colleague Al Pawlowski, the pregame and postgame host and anchor for the Guardians telecasts. And Al and I worked together for 15 years at Sports Time Ohio, Fox Sports, and Bally's. Always a pleasure, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Bruce, great to see you as always. Here we are, middle of summer, and the trade deadline's right around the corner.
Oh, can hardly wait to talk a lot of baseball with you. Before we do, I want to acknowledge your son playing for what, a regional Pony League championship? What is he, a middle infielder?
Yeah, he plays middle infield for the OPL Prospects. It's the Ohio team. They won the region this past weekend in the Youngstown area. So now they're going to North Carolina today. If they can win the East Zone, they would be in the Pony League World Series, which is the following weekend in Washington, PA. You know, some other countries are there. I think Italy's in for the first time in years. Japan. So it's still got some winning to do to get there, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's exciting.
Wow. Where did he get his talent? It couldn't have been from you.
No, he got it from his mom. There's no question about that. So I chose well when I got married.
Listen, I in the first segment, I covered the Clase thing and tied it in with Ortiz, of course. I don't want to get into whether he's guilty or not. We don't know. We'll find out with the Major League investigation. But I do want to address with you what this means for the ball club. Now, Antonetti said this doesn't affect the thinking on trading, and I guess he's got to say that, but obviously that's not the case because you know they've been getting inquiries about Clase. Al, I wouldn't trade the guy, but we don't know now. I mean, even though there's club control for the next few years with his franchise-friendly contract, we don't know how long he's going to be suspended, if he's going to be suspended. And closers like that don't come around every day or every year.
You're right. Yeah, so they can't trade him right now. They've been informed.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's with the team right now. You know, he's on leave until August 31st. That's the only information that the Guardians have been given. There's an ongoing investigation, and that's that. So, yeah, they cannot trade Clase or Ortiz. That's just the way that this situation's, panned out. So, does that change now, Bruce, the thinking like maybe you add a bullpen piece, maybe you're less willing to trade somebody else that's already in the bullpen? All those things are going to factor in as to whom they're going to trade, whom they're going to look for. But yeah, I mean, losing Clase right now before the trade deadline, just a few days before you're told you can't trade him. It's tough. It definitely changes the dynamic of what's going on in the market.
I for the last month and a half, I've come to the conclusion that the team should stand pat. I'm not looking at making the postseason this year. If it happens, it happens. Beautiful. Okay. But I'm looking at 2026. In my opinion, Al, this team could very easily get back in first place and win this division next year with a healthy Bieber and the rest of those guys in that rotation. The bullpen's very strong anyway, although this affects it now, I guess, depending on a possible suspension or not. The key will be the offense and bringing these kids up to get some experience and improve the hitting to surround Ramirez and Kwan.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the things they're going to evaluate definitely here in these last couple of months. What exactly do they have in the minors? How soon will those players be here? I mean, Chase DeLauder, unfortunately, is out again. C.J. Kafis has had a tremendous year at AAA. He's a first baseman. He's got a little bit of work in the outfield, but he's mainly a first baseman. We'll see, where he is with this organization coming down the stretch here and if he gets any time or not. Travis Pizzana is back. That's another guy that you've got to figure out where does he fit. Juan Brito, unfortunately, is hurt again. So that's another guy that's not playing right now. Those are the four main bats that I just talked about. So two guys are out, two guys currently playing. Again, where do they fit? With that being said, I think you brought up an important point. If they decide, that they're going to look ahead to the future, that future is next season. It's that quickly. You don't need any longer to rebuild, especially with Cleveland for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You don't need that sort of a rebuild with what they have. They can easily compete next year. So going to this trade deadline, the question becomes, can they get a lot more than what you think they would for some of the pieces they have, and then pull the trigger and maybe take advantage of somebody that's a little bit desperate, or if there's multiple teams. I know this, and I'm not saying they're going to trade him, and I'd love to have him stay here, and that's Stephen Kwan. I know this. I know a lot of inquiries have been made into him. A lot. So does somebody, for example, with him get a little over anxious and overspend or overpay for Quan. In that situation, you got to at least listen, right? So that's one scenario. I know that people have called about Shane Bieber. He had a very positive rehab outing last night in Akron.
Right.
That's another guy. Again, do you move these guys because you can get somebody that could, believe it or not, come back right now, help you this year, and then certainly help you next. The Tigers did that with Jack Flaherty last year. They traded into the Dodgers, then they made a run to the postseason. So there's a lot of scenarios that could play out here in the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I think Ramirez and Quan have got to be untouchables. This Quan, leadoff men like him, let alone his defense, just don't come around often. Yeah. And they can build around these two guys and improve that offense if these kids develop like we hope they do. Bieber's an interesting case, though. He last night he went 4 innings, gave up a run. It was a solo shot, 3 hits, no walks, and 7 strikeouts, 57 pitches, 37 strikes. But he's going to be a free agent, Al. Do you think coming off this surgery and this rehab, they could get, would teams be willing to give us something really credible? But then again, if he's healthy, would he be willing to give us a franchise-friendly extension? That's a tough call with him.
Well, the option is definitely, it's very player-friendly. If he opts out of it, he gets $4 million, and then he's a free agent. If he decides to opt into the option, I believe it's a $16 million option. It's in that ballpark. So next year, he's set either way. If he comes back and is unbelievable down the stretch, he probably opts out. If he comes back and he, maybe isn't 100%, he can opt in and then be back with the team next year at a very good price for him. So it's a good contract for him. Would some other team be willing to take that on? I know they would, because they've already called Cleveland and asked about it. Several have. What his price would be, now that's something that we've got to see. How much could you get for him? And again, I agree with you too, Bruce. I love Stephen Quan. I would love to see him play here like Jose Ramirez, play out his entire career here. But if he can bring back, again, an overabundance of play, I'm not talking 1 or even 2, but if you can get 3 to 4 to 5 guys that are all, if you can get a San Diego Padres type haul like they did for Mike Clevenger, for example, if you can get something like that, you've certainly got to listen.
Yeah, I know, but then you're talking 2-3 years, because there's no substitute for playoff experience, and Quan has got it now. Obviously, Jose.
Yeah.
But I'm looking to 26. I'm not getting any younger, man. I want to see a World Series championship here before I kick off to that golf course in the sky.
Look great for 80, though, Bruce. You really do.
How long do we go with Bo Naylor?
I know the organization still likes him, but yeah, he's got some improvements that need to be made. His defense it's not where you'd want it to be in all aspects. He's got a decent arm, but it's not always accurate, but it's decent, it's good, it's plus. Defensively, you'd like to see him block a few more balls as well. Batting average wise, it's got to get up there, especially when the backup is Austin Hedges. Great guy, good defensive catcher, calls a great game, incredible framer. But I'm not out of line here when I say offensively there's nothing there really. So you need more offensive production from him, a little bit better defense. Could you get another catcher here at this deadline, Bruce? There's some young catchers that are out there. I'm just going to throw a name out there that I would love to have. For example, Dalton Rushing with the Dodgers. There's a guy named Will Smith that's blocking him right now. If Cleveland could somehow get Dalton Rushing from the Dodgers, that certainly fulfills a large need for these Guardians, doesn't it?
I keep looking at every week I go through these. Naylor 235, Hedges 131, Santana 226, even Manzardo, who I like for the future, but 235, Schneemann 221, Arias 234, Rocio 214, Martinez 246, Nolan Jones 222, Noel 140, Rodriguez 167. My God, Al, this is the majors. They can't win a championship with that.
Yeah, you've got to improve the bottom of the order. So when you and I talked back in March, I said that was the one question that I had. Hitters 5 through 9. How is it going to go this year? So far, overall, when you take it as a group for the entire season, hasn't gone very well. However, there are some signs. Brian Rocio Since he's been called up, he's hit the ball a lot better. He's played some good defense too. So I'm very encouraged from what I've seen from him. Nolan Jones does have better splits in the last month or so as well. He picked it up a little bit in June, then went down again, and maybe picking it back up a little bit here in July. But yeah, you've got to see more improvement in the offense. That's why if there's a package out there where you can get multiple hitters in here, it's something you've got to look at, because the offense, you mentioned Kwan, you mentioned Ramirez. Those two guys are fantastic. I think Angel Martinez is on his way to perhaps joining that group, those two, and maybe form a nice 1-2-3. After that, 4 through 9, you've got a lot of question marks. Carlos probably won't be here next year. He's on a 1-year deal. Lane Thomas is on a 1-year deal. He's hurt right now. He probably won't be here next year. So you got a couple of guys there that are going to be moving on. With what you have and what you're looking at in AAA and AA with Bazzana, can you fill 4 through 9, or do you need to make a trade and get somebody in here? I know the Guardians, if they can get multiple bats in here that they really like, that's something they're gonna seriously take a look at.
And of course, the deadline is tomorrow at 6 p.m. But with that kind of pitching, they could be right back next season. Al Pawlowski joining us. We're going to shift gears when we come back and talk about the trades that are pending and heavily rumored with Al in just a moment. Bonus time with Drennan. Big play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Lake Spur Marketing, connecting your brand to the right customers. Visit lakespurmarketing.com today.
Al Pawlowski, kind enough to join us on today's show. Want to talk about the Major League's trading deadline and some of the rumors. But before we go and dive into that, Al, how about this confrontation between Harper and Manfred, the commissioner? Unbelievable. Get the F out of our clubhouse is what Harper said to the commissioner when he suggested that the players have got to be open-minded about a salary cap. Wow.
Yeah, it was eyebrow raising, let's say, Bruce, to hear that. Regardless of what you think of him as a player, he's still the commissioner. You should still respect the office. That being said, Bryce Harper is not shy about sharing his opinion about anything. Never has been. The old clown question, bro. Remember that? That was kind of funny several years ago. But yeah, it looks to be contentious. It's not a good sign, for the next collective bargaining agreement. I wish that they could do something where we don't have to go through this every few years of, okay, the owners want this, the players union wants this. Can we just come up with something where it seems a bit easier, like the NFL or the NBA? I mean, they don't seem to go through this anymore. Why can't we get to that point in Major League Baseball? I think there's definitely blame to go on both sides.
But Al, the precedent was set when unlike the NFL owners who stood pat.
Right.
It started when Marvin Miller went with Andy Messersmith and Curt Flood, and I don't want to go into the histrionomics of it, but that's where it began. The baseball owners were their own worst enemies for allowing the Baseball Players Association to become the strongest union on the planet, including the Soviet Union, which was proven to collapse. So they only have themselves to blame, and it's never going to change, at least not in my lifetime. I wish it would, but it won't. All right, let me get to these trades. How about this one, Al? Between games of the doubleheader between Toronto and Baltimore, Sir Anthony Dominguez was traded from the O's to the Blue Jays, so he merely had to walk from the Baltimore dugout to the Toronto dugout, meet his new teammates in the clubhouse, put on his new uniform, and go out in Game 2 and throw a scoreless inning against his former teammates, and he struck out 2 of them.
Yeah, that's something. You know what? It goes to the old saying where, come to a baseball game and you never know what you're going to see. It's something new every single day. You could see a no-hitter, you could see a perfect game, or you could see a guy you thought you were going to see in one uniform show up in the other uniform, and then, as you said, strike a couple of those guys out. That's one of the things you got to love about the game of baseball. It's things just like that. It's an everyday sport. I know you and I love it a lot. I love all sports, right? But that's what's special about baseball. It's just, even though it's every single day, it's never, to me, I know not to you either. It's never boring, and you never know what you're going to see at the ballpark. You could witness something amazing or something you're going to tell your kids for the next couple of decades?
Well, the Yankees have already made the one move with McMahon, but they're in contest. They've fallen out of first place with Toronto, of course, and I want to get to the playoff predictions in the next segment. But as far as trade rumors, there's always going to be trade rumors in New York as we approach the deadline. But it's amazing. They lost Cole. They lost Schmidt, who was really pitching well for them.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for their fans that they've had Fried give them a great year, and obviously Rodon. But I hear there's a rumor they may be going after Washington's Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah, here's the thing with the Yankees. You know they're going to be active at the deadline. They're probably going to make moves. They always do. They'll do something, even if they're a series of minor moves. Do they ever do a blockbuster one? Rarely, but sometimes you'll see that from them too. With Judge on the IL, it's that hurts them, obviously, losing his bat for who knows how long. Hopefully for them, not too long. Some of the other folks that have to play them are hoping he's out for a while. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. The one thing with the Yankees, though, Bruce, I mean, goodness, you almost never get one of their top prospects. The guys that they always promote, this guy's the greatest of all time. This guy's this guy's that. Remember Ricky Leday? Cleveland got Ricky Leday. It's like, okay, really nice kid, by the way, Ricky Leday. But that's the type of guys that they promote. They want to try to trade. They blow up their minor leaguers like, oh, this guy's the greatest, that guy's the greatest. Well, wait a minute. Did they ever trade Derek Jeter? No. Did they ever trade Bernie Williams? No. Did they ever trade Andy Pettitte or Jorge Posada? No. You don't get those guys from the Yankees. You get the guys that they blow up to be these great prospects, and unfortunately for the teams that get them, most of the time they never shake out.
Detroit has come down to earth, and I want to get to that in the next segment. But there's a hot rumor that they may be wanting to bolster their starting rotation and their pen with Pittsburgh. Names like Mitch Keller, the starter, and David Bednar are being rumored going to Detroit for prospects. Obviously, they already have acquired Paddock.
I think that if the Pittsburgh Pirates are wise, they would definitely move both of those guys right now. Bednar especially, his value will never be higher. He's had a great year out of the pen, and who knows, he might continue for the next several years of being a very good bullpen piece. But as you and I both know, bullpen guys, and every GM will tell you this, those guys go bad quickly, and you don't know when it's going to happen. Injuries occur. Out of nowhere. Look at Trevor Stephan. I mean, they signed him to a long-term deal. He gets certain spring training. He hasn't pitched in 2 years yet. So if you've got a bullpen guy that other teams are attaching a high value to, and they're willing to give you a strong package in return, especially if you're Pittsburgh, who's going nowhere. They haven't gone anywhere since, 1992, I think.
Yeah, when Leland was there, right.
Yeah, so if you're Pittsburgh right now and you've got a couple of pitchers, especially a bullpen guy like Bednar, and you can get something good in return that you're happy with, you've got to make that trade.
Yeah, the Pirates, they're the only legitimate comparison to the Browns as the most dysfunctional franchise in professional sports, in my opinion.
That's true.
Seattle and St. Louis are talking. Ryan Helsley and Phil Maton going to the Mariners, and they already have Munoz and Brash. Seattle's an interesting team this year. Your take?
Yeah, they definitely are. They're a good team. I think if they added those two guys to an already decent bullpen in Seattle, now they become really tough to deal with. And as we saw last year with Cleveland, Bruce, if you've got a dominating bullpen, that can make up for so many other ills, because all you need is a starter to go 5 or 6 innings. And then if you turn it over to a dominating bullpen, the other team's not going to score, or not going to score very much down the stretch in those games. It makes it a lot easier to win. So Seattle's got a pretty good lineup. Cal Raleigh is the favorite for the MVP right now, hitting home runs out of Seattle's ballpark at an incredible clip, which is not easy to do. They've got a good lineup, too, for the most part. I think they have a hole or two there. But I think Seattle's got a good squad. If they had the right pieces at the trade deadline. I could see them winning the West and doing some damage in the postseason.
Yeah, and you never know if they get hot like Texas a couple of years ago. Anything can happen in the postseason. L.A. and Minnesota, the Dodgers and Minnesota are talking about Duran and Jax. That would be interesting. Boy, the Dodgers. And, when you look, but, Al, they're beatable. I mean, if you look at their record, I know they're built for October, but my goodness, the rich get richer if that comes about.
Well, it does. And the only negative you can really say about the Dodgers is this. So they have an embarrassment of riches. Their income streams are off the charts. They're like the Yankees. They have so much income, so much revenue compared to all the other clubs. Even other big market clubs like Boston, they dwarf for the amount of money they can bring in and spend. But the one negative that they have is that they do get a lot of veterans. Those guys are older, and they tend to break down quicker. And we've seen that with the Dodgers. I mean, Glasnow is back now, but they've had guys that it seems, on and off the IL continuously. They have what looks like a great bullpen. Well, half those guys in the bullpen have been on the IL. So injuries are the one thing that can slow them down because they have so many veterans, and as they get older, they're more apt to that than the teams that have younger players. But the Dodgers have so much, and they have a good farm system too. I think maybe it's a touch overrated, but it's still a very good farm system. They've got enough pieces where they can go out there, and when they want whatever they want, they can give you enough out of their farm system. Like I said, Dalton Rushing. I mean, look at their catching situation. So you mentioned Cleveland's. Look at what Cleveland's doing right now with the batting averages with Bo Naylor and Austin Hedges. Both are batting below 200. Then look at the Dodgers. You've got Will Smith, the most consistent hitting catcher in Major League Baseball, right? Great guy, good defensive catcher too. I know he's getting a little bit older. Then you've got Dalton Rushing, who might very well be the top catching prospect in all of Major League Baseball, who, oh, by the way, can also play outfield. Think about that for a second, that catching situation. That's why I would love Cleveland to get Dalton Rushing somehow. He would be perfect for this place. But I'm telling you, just to have that catching situation, Bruce, it's almost unfair.
And the last one I got to ask you about is Suarez. Arizona's already in a selling mode. We know that. They dealt Josh Naylor. But where does Suarez wind up? I know the Cubs won him, but there's several other teams in there too.
Yeah, that's a huge question. Where does he wind up? The Tigers would love to have a Eugenio Suarez, from what I understand. I mean, he's a power-hitting third baseman. If you look around baseball, there's not a lot of Jose Ramirez's sitting at third base for a lot of teams. There's some good players. There's also guys that have had some injuries as well. So he is in high demand right now. I really could, Bruce. I could see him ending up in Detroit, Suarez.
All right, when we come back, we'll conclude with another segment with Al on projections for the postseason. That's next here on Bonus Time on the Big Play Sports Network.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home by visiting pureavcorp.com.
Al Pawlowski with us, pregame, postgame host, anchor, and, of course, subs for Matt Underwood doing the play-by-play on TV in the Guardians telecast. Al, as we head down the stretch here, as we enter August with September forthcoming, as I mentioned earlier, Detroit has come down to earth. Toronto has caught fire. Obviously, Detroit had that spell of losing 12 of 13. Toronto was overtaking the Yankees. They've got a 4-game lead on them. Boston is there. Boston's going to be interesting, but Houston is Houston. They seem to be in command in the West by 4 over Seattle, who we touched upon in the previous segment. What do you think here in the American League?
Well, I think, the East is going to come down to Toronto and New York as far as the winner goes. The other's going to be in the wild card. I don't think there's much debate about that. As you mentioned, Boston, right there too. I think they're playing better than many thought they would. And funny enough, they trade Rafael Devers, and they're doing just fine without him, it appears. So things have worked out there. That's why this wild card is going to be so tough, because you've probably got 2, if not 3 teams coming from the East. So you got the Yankees, you got the Red Sox, the Rays are still in the conversation, Orioles out. In the Central, even though Detroit has not looked good in the past month, as you mentioned, they lost 12 of 13. They look a little bit better now in the last week, but they built such a big lead. I don't see anybody catching them in the Central, unfortunately. When it was going to look like it was getting down to 7 Whoa, okay, from 15 to 7, that's 8 games in just a couple of weeks span. That's amazing. But I mean, you'd have to go into mid-August about 4 or 5 back. You'd have to go into September about 3 or 4 back to have a realistic chance. Anything can happen, of course, but it's tough to catch teams that have a weak lead at any point in Major League Baseball season. If they've got a half a week lead in September, it's tough to catch them as well. So I think the Tigers go there. That the Guardians are still in the conversation, as are the Royals in the wild card. The Twins are not. I think they're done. But we'll see what happens down the stretch. Cleveland's pitching's been pretty good. I agree with you on the West. The Astros are the Astros. That's another team that I think is probably in either way. That's why this wild card is going to be tough. And I really like Seattle. I think Seattle, if they make the right moves at this deadline, I think they've got a good shot too. The Rangers are still in the conversation. The Angels and the A's, in my opinion, are not.
Right. I agree with you totally on Seattle. That is an interesting club this year, and we'll wait to see what happens by 6 p.m. tomorrow. I've been trying to explain to first of all, catching Detroit, that comes down to mathematics. You have to look at what percentage the Guardians or any chasers would have to play at, and that's even if your barometer is that Detroit would merely play 500 ball, and you'd preferably want them to play below 500 ball the rest of the way. But here's what I've been trying to explain to the fans as far as the wild card. Everybody's playing everybody else and knocking each other off. So when you have a 3.5, 4.5 game deficit in the wild card, that's actually a taller mountain to climb than what it sounds like, Al.
Yeah, 100%. And I've been telling people that too for years, that in Cleveland, they said, well, Cleveland's only up by 3 games in the wild card. I said that 3 games is like 6 or 7 in a divisional race.
Yes.
And if it's the other way around trying to catch it, it's tough. So, yeah, I mean, they're definitely still in the conversation. There's no doubt about it. But you have to do what they just recently did. You've got to win 12 out of 14 games, or you've got to win 8 out of 10 at least. You've got to have stretches like that, because as other teams are losing, other teams are winning too. So, yeah, every time you win, you're gaining ground on somebody. Every time you lose, you're losing ground to somebody. It's not like a divisional race where if you're just trying to catch one team, it's like, well, what did they do? They lost, we lost. Okay, we didn't lose any ground. We won, they lost. Hey, we gained a game on them. The wild card is awfully tough to get to, and you've got to be within a game or 2 in September. If you're 3 or 4 out in September, it's almost impossible, unless there's only 4 teams going for 3 spots. That's different. But if there's 6 or 7 teams, then boy, it is tough.
It is. I learned my lesson, and I think a lot of fans did too, a couple years ago with Texas getting hot at the right time. It was sort of like Cleveland in '97, getting hot at the right time and carrying it into the postseason. But when I look, if we were to stop the season right now, I think the World Series champion comes out of the National League. I mean, you look at either Philadelphia or the Mets, the way Milwaukee's playing, my goodness, to overtake the Cubs as they have, and obviously the Dodgers, Al. But the National League contenders look stronger, in my opinion. Your take on that?
Yeah, it's a little more top-heavy than the American League, because all the American League teams look vulnerable. I mean, look at the Blue Jays back earlier in the season. They weren't very good. Suddenly they're the hottest team in the American League. They're the toughest team to deal with right now. The Yankees are the Yankees, but they've shown some cracks as well. Houston does not look as dominating as they have in years past. Maybe without the garbage cans, they're not quite as good. But in the National League, it's the Mets and the Phils in the East. The other 3 teams, they're out. It's the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Central. Don't sleep on the Reds with Tito. He always has his teams playing well down the stretch. I could see the Reds making a run. It's going to be tough because of all the, you've got 2 teams that are going from the East. You already got 2 that are going from the Central, the Brewers and Cubs, depending who wins. And then you've got the Padres over in the West that, they're having a pretty good season too. Don't count them out. They're back.
Right.
They had a little struggle at the end of April and early May, but they're a good team. So, the Dodgers are definitely going. The Mets and Phillies definitely going. The Brewers and Cubs, I think, are definitely going, unless one of those teams has an amazing fallout. So then you're down to the Reds, the Cardinals, and the Padres fighting for that last wild card spot. Even the Giants are in conversation as well. So it's a lot more top heavy. You also have a lot more bad teams in the National League. The Rockies are not a good team. And Cleveland should have won that game on Monday night. They were up 3-0. The Rockies were. Blaylock had the best outing of his young career, and the bullpen comes in and absolutely blows it, gives Cleveland a 5-3 lead. However, Cleveland gave it back ultimately in the 9th inning, and the Rockies win last night. They just got obliterated. The Rockies are terrible, and the National League teams get to play them more than the American League teams. The Diamondbacks, they're not very good this year. Pirates are bad. And then in the East, Bruce, I mean, the Nationals are terrible. The Braves are not good this year, and the Miami Marlins, they're better than they've been in years past, but they're another team you can beat up.
Right. The story in the Central is fascinating with Milwaukee in July, 17-6. They had won 11 in a row. And isn't it funny that they have overtaken their old manager, Craig Counsell? I find that a fascinating sidebar story, Al.
Excuse me, Bruce. Yeah, it certainly is. The way that they have come on, and it was the Counsell situation is kind of funny. I mean, he demanded a lot of money. He got it from the Chicago Cubs. Good for him. But yeah, he goes there. The Cubs look like they're world beaters. It looks like, they're going to be back in the World Series. Maybe they win the whole thing again. Not even 10 years later, they get another world title after they couldn't win it for felt like 100 years. But now Milwaukee's playing so well. I think that is a great story.
Yeah, and the in conclusion, Al, the competition between Philadelphia and New York, the pressure's on both of these franchises. On the Mets, for all the money they've spent, especially acquiring Soto, who got hurt last night. I don't know how serious it is. Fouled the pitch off of his ankle. But Philadelphia, with the team, they've been a contender now for years and haven't been able to win the World Series. Between those two, there'll be enormous pressure, and let's not forget about the world champ Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the team again that ultimately, when you look at 1 through 26, who's got the most talented roster, it's the Dodgers. I mean, they have the most depth. They just do. The Mets are pretty impressive with what they have. So are the Phils, but it's the Dodgers with the best roster, and I would say they would be the slight favorite coming out of it. But when October comes, who knows? It's interesting too. You mentioned Philadelphia with Harper and Schwarber, kind of this era, to not get a world championship. And Philadelphia is a sports town. They're not very forgiving there.
Yeah, right.
They're going to look back and say, how did we not get a world championship? And not only with them, they've got some very good pitchers. Sanchez is having a fantastic year.
Yeah, Wheeler's probably going to win the Cy Young over there.
I
think.
I mean, they've got an incredible rotation too. That they got depth there. So if they don't win it, I don't think the Philly people are going to be very happy.
Al Pawlowski, of course, everybody knows Al, pregame, postgame host over on the Guardians telecast. Al, old friend, thanks so much. Always a pleasure, buddy.
You got it, Bruce. Great to see you again.
And good luck to your son.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back in a minute. Ryan Sandberg passed away. That's next. Bonus time with Drennan on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. Energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Our thanks to my pal and former colleague, Al Pawlowski. The baseball world has lost truly one of the greats of all time. Ryan Sandberg has passed away at the age of 65, cancer victim. At the time of his retirement, he held the record for home runs for a second baseman with a 277 of his 282 home runs. 10-time All-Star, 9 Gold Gloves, 7 Silver Slugger trophies, and the 1984 National League MVP award. He had 13 triples that year. And speaking of 84, in a game versus the Cubs' arch-rival St. Louis Cardinals, Sandberg had 5 hits, drove in 7 runs, and had a pair of game-tying home runs off future Hall of Fame relief pitcher Bruce Sutter. Sandberg ranks in the top 5 in Cubs history in home runs, doubles, stolen bases, hits, runs, scored, extra base hits, total bases, and games played. The 1984 season turned out to be a very disappointing one for Cubs fans, as so many of the years have been for them. But the Cubs that year posted the best record in the National League, winning 96 games. Detroit Tigers had the best record by far in the American League, and all of baseball purists wanted to see the World Series between the two of them. But in those days, the playoffs were a best of 5, and the Cubs clobbered the West Division champion Padres in the first 2 games at Wrigley Field. Game 1, the Cubs actually won that ball game 13-0. But the system is flawed as the system was then, and I do mean flawed. Had the team with the better record having to play games 3, 4, and 5, if necessary, on the road. The deciding game 5, 6-3, after losing 7-1 in game 4, 7-1 in game 3, 7-5 in game 4, and at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, we were deprived. Baseball purists were deprived of seeing what could have been a dream World Series that year. And proof of that statement came when the Tigers made fast work of the San Diego Padres, beating them in 5 games. By the way, not only did Sandberg win the National League MVP, but former Indian pitcher Rick Sutcliffe won the Cy Young Award in '84, going 16-1 with a 2.69 ERA. In exchange for Sutcliffe, we got Joe Carter and Mel Hall. Ask Bruce segment next on Bonus Time with Drennan. Big play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com today.
A lot of baseball on today's show. Of course, very shortly, we're going to be shifting our attention to the Browns, the NFL, college football with the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Ask Bruce segment. Fire away, Ryan.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce, do you believe the Clase news along with Ortiz sets the Guardians franchise back from competing in 2026 and beyond? And could this be cause for a rebuild?
That's an impossible question to answer. And that's what I touched upon with Al. And, you know, tying in with that question is Bieber. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Now, if he comes back and he pitches well, he could also be traded by tomorrow at 6 p.m. We don't know. It all ties together, and it's a very valid question you ask, but it's impossible to answer right now until we know the outcome of the investigation with both Clase and Ortiz and the Bieber factor tied in as well.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce, who are you more comfortable with potentially becoming the everyday shortstop for the Guardians, Brian Rocchio or Gabriel Arias?
I think that remains to be seen between the two of them. That'll battle away, fight it out, see who's the better of the two. Obviously, Bazan is going to be the future second baseman. We know that for sure. And I hope it's as soon as next year, but I don't want to rush the kid too much, but he's just so good. He may be ready to assume that position by next year after shortly becoming a professional.
Hey, Bruce, is it fair to question Stephen Vogt about not playing Kyle Manzardo every day?
I'm not going to go there with him because he knows that clubhouse. Manzardo's still a kid. He's still learning major league pitching. You can tell by his batting average, even though he's displayed power that we all desire with our team since we've been lacking it so desperately. But no, I won't second guess him on that. I think the kid has to slowly develop and learn major league pitching. It's a totally different world than AAA.
Alrighty, last one for you. Hey, Bruce, is it at all unsettling to you that other members in Bazana's draft class have already made major league impacts and he's yet to touch AAA?
Well, again, I think come September you're going to see him. I think he's going to be up here. As Kafis is going to be up here. DeLauder would have been, but he's hurt right now. Brito also is another one, but he's hurt right now. Let's get their feet wet and see what they can do in the big time. But I think Bazana definitely is destined to be with us next year with the Major League Club. Whether it's right out of spring training or not remains to be seen. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. That's all the time we have for this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. And I am Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you join us for next week's show. And until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I love you, Cleveland.